My name is Adam, and at 58 years old, I ran a small but profitable antique furniture restoration business in Charleston, South Carolina. The workshop hummed with the scent of polished wood and varnish, where I spent my days breathing new life into forgotten pieces from the city's historic homes. Customers trusted me with heirlooms, and the steady income let me provide a comfortable life for my daughter, Chloe, who had just finished college and was starting her own path. Life felt balanced, rooted in the craft my grandfather had passed down to me. That changed in an instant when Chloe came home from a routine checkup with devastating news. The doctors had diagnosed her with a rare blood disorder, one that attacked her system silently and required an experimental treatment only available at a specialized clinic abroad. The procedure promised a cure, but the price tag loomed at over $500,000, far beyond what our savings or insurance could touch. I remember sitting at the kitchen table that evening, staring at the paperwork, my hands trembling as the reality sank in. Chloe looked so small and scared, her eyes pleading for reassurance. In that moment, nothing else mattered. I couldn't let her face this alone. I didn't hesitate. Over the next few months, I liquidated everything. The workshop went first, sold to a younger craftsman who promised to honor its legacy, though it tore at me to hand over the space where I'd built my world. Our house followed, the one with the creaky porch swing where Chloe and I used to watch fireflies on summer nights. I even parted with my collection of rare tools, chisels and planes handed down through generations, each one a piece of family history. The proceeds barely covered the treatment, but it was enough. We moved into a cramped rented apartment on the edge of town, its walls thin and the rent eating into what little remained. To make ends meet, I took a job as a mover, loading and unloading furniture for strangers in the humid Charleston heat. My back ached from the heavy lifts, and my hands, once steady on delicate carvings, now calloused from rough crates. But every paycheck went straight to Chloe's care, and watching her grow stronger, her color returning after the treatments, made the sacrifices fade into the background. She was alive, and that was my salvation. Those early days in the tiny apartment tested me like nothing else. The place was a single room with a fold-out bed, a hot plate for cooking, and walls that seemed to close in during the humid Charleston nights. I woke before dawn for my mover shifts, hauling antique sofas and oak dressers up narrow staircases in historic homes that reminded me of what I'd lost. My body protested, knees buckling under loads that once would have been routine, but I pushed through, knowing each dollar kept Chloe in follow-up care. She landed a job at a local bookstore, shelving novels and helping customers find mysteries and romances, her energy returning bit by bit. We shared quiet evenings over simple meals, talking about her dreams of starting a family one day, and I nodded along, hiding how the weight of it all pressed on me. Deep down, I clung to the furniture craft, sketching designs in a worn notebook during breaks, reminding myself that this was temporary. Years passed in that grind. Chloe's health stabilized, the treatments proving effective, and she began dating Ethan, a sharp young lawyer from a well-connected family. He had big plans, always talking about climbing the ranks in a firm downtown, buying a place in the upscale Battery District. I liked him at first, polished, ambitious, with a quick laugh that eased Chloe's worries. But as their relationship deepened, I saw Chloe pulling away, chasing a life that felt out of reach. Meanwhile, I saved every spare cent from my job, fixing up odd furniture pieces on weekends in the apartment's corner, selling them at flea markets for extra cash. It was enough to dream again. At 62, with Chloe's encouragement, I decided it was time to rebuild. The moving job had taught me the value of sturdy homes, and I yearned for a space where I could restore more than just my finances, my spirit. I found the house on the outskirts of the city. A rambling Victorian from the 1890s, tucked among live oaks draped in Spanish moss. It sat on a quiet plot, far from the tourist crowds, with a wraparound porch sagging from neglect and rooms filled with dust and echoes. The price was right for my savings, a steal for someone willing to invest sweat. The realtor called it a fixer-upper, but I saw potential, the high ceilings perfect for displaying restored pieces, the backyard shed ripe for a workshop. Closing the deal felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Chloe and Ethan came to see it, her eyes lighting up at the grand staircase, him calculating square footage for future equity. I promised her we'd make it a home, one plank at a time. Renovation started immediately. I quit the moving job, taking on freelance restoration gigs to fund the work, and dove in with tools borrowed from old contacts. The structure needed everything: rotting floorboards replaced with heart pine salvaged from a demolition site, wallpaper stripped to reveal original plaster walls. I worked from sunup to sundown, my hands rediscovering the rhythm of sanding and staining. The kitchen got new cabinets I built myself, simple shaker style with dovetail joints that honored my grandfather's techniques. Upstairs bedrooms transformed into cozy retreats, one for Chloe if she ever needed it, with fresh linens and a window overlooking the marsh. The living room became the heart, a fireplace roaring on cool evenings, shelves lined with books and a few cherished antiques I'd managed to repurchase. Sweat poured as I reinforced the foundation, wired new electrical, and painted exteriors in soft Charleston green. Neighbors stopped by with lemonade, sharing stories of the house's past. A sea captain's widow had lived there once, raising her children amid whispers of lost fortunes. I poured my soul into it, not just repairing wood but mending the fragments of my life. But the true secret lay hidden within those walls. Midway through the project, while tearing out a section of the attic floor for better insulation, I uncovered a concealed compartment behind a loose panel, a dusty alcove my grandfather must have built decades ago. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were his original blueprints and a prototype of his genius invention, a unique furniture mechanism. He had been a tinkerer, blending mechanics with craftsmanship, and this was his masterpiece, a system of hidden gears and levers that allowed antique-style pieces to transform seamlessly. A desk could unfold into a full workstation, a chair adjust without visible screws. He had patented a basic version before his death, but these were the advanced designs, refined over years, capable of revolutionizing the industry. Mass-produced, it could make durable, adaptable furniture affordable for everyday homes, preserving heirloom aesthetics with modern function. Grandfather had hidden them away, perhaps fearing theft or ready only when the time was right. I stared at the find for hours that first night, the yellowed papers crinkling under my fingers. The prototype, a small side table, still worked flawlessly when I tested it, drawers gliding on silent tracks, a top that lifted to reveal storage. Emotions flooded me, grief for the man who'd taught me my trade, pride in his foresight, and a spark of hope. This was family legacy, buried like a time capsule. I knew instantly I couldn't let it gather dust. Careful not to alert anyone, I built a secret room off the basement, a reinforced space behind a false wall in the wine cellar area. It required precision, framing with pressure-treated lumber, installing a hidden door triggered by a disguised latch shaped like a carved acorn. Inside, I installed climate control to protect the documents and prototype from humidity, shelves for notes, and even a small workbench for tweaks. Locks secured it all, combination only I knew. No one, not even Chloe, suspected. To the world, the house was just my rebuilt haven. Beneath, it guarded our future. As the renovations wrapped, the house stood proud, a testament to resilience. I hosted a small housewarming, Chloe and Ethan toasting with me on the porch, the air thick with magnolia scent. She hugged me tight, whispering thanks for the sacrifices that led here. Ethan discussed expansion ideas, but I smiled politely, my mind on the secret below. This wasn't just shelter, it was a foundation for revival. I planned to study the blueprints, perhaps partner with a manufacturer one day, relaunching the family business on a grander scale. Chloe's health had stabilized, my hands were steady again, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. Little did I know, shadows loomed, testing what I'd built. The house settled into a rhythm after the renovations, its creaks and sighs like old friends greeting me each morning. At 65, I had carved out a quiet existence, taking on selective restoration commissions that trickled in from the city, refinishing a mahogany armoire for a museum or repairing a walnut sideboard for a historic inn. The work kept my skills sharp without overwhelming me, and I spent afternoons in the backyard workshop, experimenting with the secret mechanism from grandfather's prototype. I'd tweak a gear here, test a lever there, envisioning how it could transform a simple bench into a multifunctional piece. The secret room remained untouched, a vault of potential I guarded closely, sharing sketches only in my private notebook. Life felt purposeful, the scars of sacrifice fading into this new chapter. Chloe's visits grew more frequent as her relationship with Ethan solidified. They had married in a simple ceremony 2 years prior, in the garden of a downtown chapel, with me walking her down the aisle. She glowed that day, her laughter cutting through the spring air, and Ethan stood tall in his suit, promising to build a future together. He was climbing fast at his law firm, handling corporate cases that paid well, and Chloe had quit the bookstore to support him, organizing events for his networking circles. They rented a sleek apartment in the city, modern and minimalist, a far cry from our old apartment days. I was proud, seeing her thrive, and invited them over often for Sunday dinners, roast chicken from the local market, collard greens from my small garden plot. We'd sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the marsh gold, and talk about their plans. Chloe spoke of starting a family, her hand often resting on her stomach as if willing it to happen. Then, one crisp autumn afternoon, she arrived alone, her car crunching over the gravel drive. I was in the living room, polishing a brass lamp, when she knocked and let herself in, her face flushed with excitement. "Dad, we have news," she said, hugging me tightly before pulling back with a radiant smile. She was pregnant, 8 weeks along, the doctor confirmed. Joy hit me like a wave. I pulled her into another embrace, my mind racing with images of a grandchild playing in the yard, learning the trade someday. We sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd built with grandfather's dovetail technique, and she shared details, the ultrasound heartbeat, the name ideas they toyed with, something strong like Elias or gentle like Sophia. Ethan was over the moon, she said, already planning nursery themes. I fetched herbal tea, careful with her condition, and we talked for hours, my heart swelling at the thought of our family expanding. But as the conversation shifted, her tone changed, laced with practicality that bordered on insistence. She explained their apartment was too small, the city noise too much for a baby. They needed space, a yard for the child to run, rooms to grow into. Ethan's parents, retired and affluent from his father's banking career, were eager to help, offering to contribute financially if they found the right place. Chloe's eyes met mine steadily. "Your house, Dad, it's perfect. Out here, away from the hustle, with all that room you've fixed up. We could all live there. You wouldn't have to worry about upkeep alone anymore." I paused, teacup midway to my lips, processing. It was my home, rebuilt with my hands, but she was my daughter, carrying my grandchild. Generosity tugged at me, perhaps sharing it would knit us closer. She pressed on, detailing the vision. Ethan and his parents would move in too, his folks downsizing from their suburban place, bringing stability for the baby. The main floor for the couple and child, upstairs for the in-laws, and plenty of space for gatherings. "We'll take care of everything," she assured, waving off my hesitations. "The mortgage is paid, and with Ethan's career, we can handle any updates." Then came the part that stung. For me, a place would be found, in the guest room in the basement. It was dry and finished now, with its own entrance and a small window, but it felt like relegation, to the shadows while they claimed the light. I pictured myself descending those stairs daily, my workshop squeezed into a corner, the porch no longer mine. Chloe framed it as temporary, a family unit until the baby was older, but her words carried an edge, as if the decision was already made. Over the next weeks, the visits turned into planning sessions. Ethan joined, his briefcase in hand, spreading blueprints on the dining table. He pointed out efficiencies, knocking out a wall for an open kitchen, converting the den into a home office for his work. His parents arrived one weekend, a polished pair in matching golf attire, appraising the space like realtors. The mother complimented the renovations but suggested modernizing the outdated charm, while the father calculated property values, hinting at future resale. Chloe beamed through it all, rubbing her growing belly, but I sensed the shift. My home, once a sanctuary of solitude and secrets, became a bargaining chip in their ambitions. They spoke of equity, of how my generous contribution would secure the family's future. I nodded along, masking unease, but nights alone brought doubts. The basement room echoed with isolation, the secret below felt more vital than ever, a legacy they overlooked. Chloe called daily, updates on doctor visits mixed with logistics, movers booked, his parents packing. She assured me it was for the best, that I'd love being close to the grandkid. Ethan emailed contracts, informal ones outlining shared residency, with clauses on contributions that leaned heavily my way. I reviewed them in the quiet of my study, the weight settling. This wasn't just space, it was surrender. My rebuilt world, poured from sacrifice, now pawned for their comfort. Yet love for Chloe held me back from refusal. The pregnancy advanced, her excitement infectious, and I wrestled with the cost of standing firm. Little did I know, the betrayal ran deeper, cracks in her story widening. As move-in day approached, preparations accelerated. They arrived with boxes, his parents' SUV loaded with linens and silverware. Chloe directed placements, claiming the master suite for nursery potential. Ethan measured for his office setup, tools clanging. I handed over spare keys, my voice steady, but inside, resolve hardened. The house, my soul's work, wouldn't fade quietly. In the basement, the secret room waited, untouched, a silent guardian of what truly mattered. The preparations for their arrival consumed the house in the weeks leading up. Boxes stacked in the foyer, labeled in Chloe's neat handwriting, kitchen essentials, baby clothes, Ethan's law files. I helped where I could, clearing space in the attic for their overflow, my hands steady on the ladder but my mind churning. At 65, I had learned to read people through their actions, and something felt off. Chloe's visits carried a forced cheer, her hugs lingering too long as if masking guilt. Ethan pushed the timeline, citing work deadlines, while his parents sent emails about family contributions that detailed my role in upkeep and bills. The basement room got a fresh coat of paint, its door oiled for smooth swings, but descending to inspect it felt like rehearsing exile. Nights, I lay awake in my bed upstairs, the ceiling fan whirring, replaying conversations. Her pregnancy glowed genuine, the ultrasound photos pinned to the fridge, but the luxury crept in, new jewelry on her finger, a designer bag slung over her shoulder during lunch visits. They spoke of vacations to the Bahamas, funded by savings, yet Ethan's firm was still mid-tier. Doubt gnawed, my sacrifices had been absolute, and this entitlement didn't align. I started small, piecing together inconsistencies. One evening, sorting through old mail in the study, I found a crumpled receipt from a high-end spa, Chloe's name, dated during her treatments years back. It didn't add up, those months abroad were supposed to be grueling, not indulgent. I recalled her pale face upon return, the fatigue real enough, but now questions mounted. Ethan's business ventures came up casually, seed money for a side consulting firm, he said, to branch into real estate law. Investors are lining up, he'd boast over coffee, but details blurred. Chloe deflected when I asked about finances, changing topics to nursery colors. The house, my rebuilt haven, now buzzed with their energy, yet it isolated me. I retreated to the workshop, sanding a cherrywood panel, the rhythmic motion calming nerves. Grandfather's mechanism prototype sat nearby, its gears a reminder of hidden truths. If deception lurked in family, what else? The breaking point came mid-move, 2 days before the full influx. Chloe was at a prenatal class, Ethan at the office, his parents delayed by traffic from their old home. Alone, I sat at the kitchen table with a cooling cup of black coffee, staring at a photo of Chloe's childhood, her gap-toothed smile at 8, before the diagnosis upended us. The lie, if it was one, poisoned that memory. I needed facts, not suspicions. An old contact surfaced in my mind, Dr. Harlan, a family friend from the restoration circle. He wasn't her oncologist but had consulted on blood disorders during her care, a hematologist with a private practice in Mount Pleasant. We'd bonded over shared patients years ago. He knew the weight of my sacrifices. I hadn't spoken to him in ages, but trust lingered. Picking up the phone, I dialed his office, heart pounding as the receptionist patched me through. Adam? It's been too long, Harlan's voice crackled, warm but surprised. I explained haltingly, the move, the doubts, Chloe's past illness. I need to know if it was real, I said, voice low. The diagnosis, the treatments. Was it all as they said? Silence stretched, then he sighed, the sound heavy with reluctance. Come by tomorrow morning. We can't discuss over lines. I arrived at his clinic at dawn, the waiting room empty, smelling of antiseptic and old magazines. Harlan met me in his office, a cluttered space with medical texts and a window overlooking the harbor. He closed the door, offered water I declined, and sat across, his face etched with concern. Adam, what you're asking, it's delicate. Patient confidentiality binds me, but since it's family and you're the one who funded it, I'll share what I can. He pulled a file from a locked drawer, not Chloe's, he clarified, but notes from consultations he'd done as a second opinion. The disorder she claimed, a rare aplastic anemia variant, requires specific markers. I reviewed her labs back then, at your request. My request? I nodded vaguely, remembering frantic calls to experts. Harlan flipped pages, his finger tracing charts. The symptoms fit superficially, fatigue, pallor, but the blood work was inconsistent. Low counts, yes, but not the full profile for that rarity. I flagged it to the primary doctor, suggested further tests. My stomach twisted. And? He met my eyes steadily. They proceeded anyway. The treatment abroad was experimental, costly, but her response was uneven. Recovery seemed too swift for such severity. He leaned back, choosing words carefully. Adam, I suspected fabrication early on. Not the full illness, perhaps a mild condition exaggerated. But when I pushed for verification, the records from overseas were vague, sealed under privacy, they said. I couldn't access more without her consent. The room spun slightly, I gripped the chair arms. Fabrication? For what? Harlan's expression softened with pity. Money, likely. I've seen it before, families desperate, or scheming. You sold everything, word spread in medical circles. Chloe approached the clinic post-treatment for follow-ups, but inconsistencies piled up. He showed me a redacted email chain, dates aligning with her recovery. Forged documents, he implied, altered labs, scripted symptoms to qualify for the high-cost program. The clinic abroad, reputable but pricey, hadn't verified deeply. Assuming good faith. Details unfolded like an unraveling tapestry. Chloe had consulted a shady medical advisor, Harlan learned through back channels, someone who specialized in disability claims for payouts. The diagnosis papers I signed? Doctored with official stamps from a complicit source. The $500,000? Funneled not just to treatment but to offshore accounts, seeding Ethan's early ventures, a law practice launch with luxury office space, vacations masked as stress relief. Chloe's lavish life, the designer clothes, the jewelry, stemmed from my ruin. She played the part well, Harlan said. Guilt or greed? Hard to say. But your sacrifice, it was built on deceit. Rage simmered, but I held it, questions firing. How long? Since the diagnosis call, planned with Ethan, who advised on the legal side. His parents? Unwitting, perhaps, or complicit in the cover. The pregnancy? Real, but timed for leverage, pulling me into their web. I left Harlan's office numb, the harbor breeze slapping my face as I drove home. The house loomed, boxes waiting like accusations. In the basement, I stood before the secret door, hand on the latch, but didn't enter. The mechanism, grandfather's legacy, felt purer now, untouched by their greed. Chloe's calls went unanswered that day. I needed space to process. Betrayal cut deep, not just the money but the trust shattered. My daughter, the one I'd moved mountains for, had orchestrated it all. The experimental treatment? A facade for swindling. Her health stable because the disorder never fully existed. Tears came then, silent in the workshop, but resolve followed. Justice wouldn't come through confrontation, it would be quiet, reclaiming what was mine. As evening fell, I sat on the porch, marsh winds whispering. The truth freed me, even as it broke my heart. Their arrival tomorrow would test it all, but I was ready, keys in hand, secrets intact. The morning of their arrival dawned gray and humid, the kind of Charleston weather that clung to the skin like regret. I rose early, the house still mine in the quiet hours before chaos descended. At 65, my hands moved with deliberate calm as I packed a single duffel bag, essentials only, clothes, a few books, grandfather's old notebook of sketches. The basement guest room, freshly prepared with crisp sheets and a lamp, would remain empty. I had no intention of occupying it. The secret room's door clicked shut behind me one last time, the prototype and blueprint secure in their climate-controlled sanctuary. I locked the main house keys on a hook by the door, a symbolic handover, but my mind was already miles away, focused on the steps I'd taken in the night. Sleep had evaded me after Harlan's revelations, replaced by action. Calls to a patent attorney, a trusted contact from my restoration days, and negotiations with an international furniture conglomerate. The deal closed swiftly. Grandfather's invention, the transforming mechanism, sold for a sum that dwarfed the $500,000 I'd lost years ago. 7 figures, wired to an account in my name alone. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. I stepped onto the porch as their vehicles pulled up the drive, a convoy of SUVs loaded with furniture and expectations. Chloe emerged first, her belly rounded under a loose dress, waving with that bright smile that now rang hollow. Ethan followed, directing the movers with clipped efficiency, his tie loosened against the heat. His parents trailed, the father lugging a cooler of what he called essentials, the mother scanning the facade with appraising eyes. They greeted me warmly, hugs and handshakes, Chloe's embrace lingering as she whispered, "This is going to be amazing, Dad. For all of us." I nodded, forcing a smile, and handed her the keys without a word about the basement or the secrets buried below. "The house is yours," I said simply, my voice steady. "Take care of it." No accusations, no scenes, just the quiet transfer of a shell, stripped of its true value. They bustled in, voices echoing through the halls I'd rebuilt. Chloe claimed the master suite immediately, exclaiming over the nursery potential, while Ethan set up his office in the den, cables snaking across the floorboards I'd sanded smooth. His parents took the upstairs guest rooms, unpacking linens and photos that personalized the space overnight. Movers hauled in their modern pieces, sleek sofas clashing with my antique touches, a crib assembled in the corner. I lingered on the edges, offering coffee from the kitchen I'd crafted, but detachment settled in. Watching them, the truth from Harlan replayed, the forged documents, the exaggerated symptoms, the funds diverted to Ethan's startup loans and their lavish escapes. Chloe's jewelry caught the light as she directed placements, a necklace I'd never seen, bought with my sacrifice. Ethan joked about flipping the equity someday, oblivious to the irony. His parents fussed over the garden, suggesting professional landscaping, their retirement funds untouched by the scheme. Chloe caught my eye once, her expression flickering, guilt? Suspicion, but she turned away, rubbing her belly. As the day wore on, I excused myself to the workshop, the one space they hadn't yet invaded. There, amid sawdust and half-finished projects, I finalized the last details. The patent sale included non-disclosure, the company, a Swiss firm with global reach, promised to credit grandfather's name in production. The mechanism would debut in modular home lines, desks that expanded for remote work, chairs that adapted for aging users, revolutionizing accessibility without compromising craft. The proceeds burned in my account, a fortune born from legacy, not deceit. I invested it all that afternoon via secure transfer, every cent into a charitable foundation, Adams Legacy Fund, dedicated to real blood disorder research and support. No fanfare, just quiet endowments to clinics like Harlan's, scholarships for families facing genuine crises, partnerships with labs advancing treatments. It mirrored my original sacrifice but purified, helping strangers who'd never forge a path to my door. The paperwork arrived by email as the sun dipped, signatures electronic and binding. My home was gone, but purpose surged anew. By evening, the house transformed under their hands. Dinner aromas wafted, catered trays from a downtown spot, a welcome feast Ethan insisted on. They invited me to join, plates set at the dining table, but I declined politely, citing errands in town. Chloe protested, her eyes searching mine, but I waved it off. Enjoy your new start, I said, duffel over my shoulder. As I walked to my truck, the one reliable holdover from my old life, their laughter filtered out, plans for baby showers, career leaps, family holidays. The secret room remained hidden, its treasure now echoes in boardrooms abroad. They had the walls, the porch, the yard, but not the soul. Chloe would discover the emptiness in time, rattling drawers for value that wasn't there, the house a beautiful husk burdened by her unspoken lie. Driving away, the marsh blurred past, Spanish moss trailing like farewell banners. I checked into a modest inn on the outskirts, the room sparse but freeing. At my age, new beginnings felt improbable, yet here it was. The foundation's launch loomed, press releases drafted, a small office leased in the city for oversight. I'd consult on grants, connect with patients like the old me, pouring energy into causes that mattered. Chloe's calls came that night, I let them go to voicemail, her voice tentative, "Dad? Where are you? Come back." Messages piled, Ethan's confusion, his parents' concern, but I drafted a single response, sent to her alone, "The house is yours. I've found my path elsewhere. Take care of the baby." No details on the sale, the fund, let her wonder, let the burden settle. Days turned to weeks, the foundation taking shape. I met with lawyers to structure it ironclad, immune to family claims. Board members joined, Harlan among them, his expertise guiding medical focus. First grants disbursed, aid for a single mother in Savannah facing leukemia costs, equipment for a rural clinic. Each check felt like justice, mending what Chloe broke. The company emailed updates, prototypes in testing, market buzz building. Grandfather's name would shine, his invention helping thousands, while I rebuilt quietly. A small apartment downtown sufficed, near the foundation office. With a corner for sketches. No workshop yet, but plans simmered, perhaps partnering on custom pieces incorporating the mechanism for donors. Chloe reached out sporadically, her tone shifting from worry to frustration. "The house feels off without you," one message read. "What's going on?" I replied sparingly, focusing on the grandchild's health, avoiding the truth. Let her live with the empty walls, the luxury facade cracking under mortgage weight they now shouldered alone. Ethan's ventures strained, I heard through grapevine, investors wary without the family backing. His parents grumbled about space, hinting at return. The pregnancy progressed, a boy, they announced, but joy tempered by absence. I sent a gift, neutral, a wooden rattle carved by hand, no note. In time, purpose solidified. At foundation events, I spoke of loss turned gain, sacrifices for the greater good, without naming names. Strangers thanked me, stories mirroring my past but real. The legacy preserved, not in bricks or blood, but in impact. Chloe's betrayal scarred, but it freed me to this, a life of quiet service, grandfather's genius echoing worldwide. The house faded to memory, a chapter closed, while new horizons opened. At 66, I walked taller, unburdened.